Welcome back to the news from Kazakhstan. I'm Askar Sherliyev with the latest updates. Here are the headlines. The convicted oppositionist Yermek Narımbayev could face new charges of breaking the law on the leader of nation. Activists of the movement Желтоқсан 86 called the population to refrain from rallies on the Republican Square during the Independence Day. Kazakh repatriates report about the failure of the state send-home program Nurly Kosh. A case of hepatitis A is registered in a Pavlodar school. A pupil and a gym teacher ended up in the infectious hospital on Wednesday.
Sanitary doctors call the population not to panic. Epidemiologists believe the nidus of the infection is located outside the school. It is likely the infected child and gym teacher consumed water from the same pump. Currently, the sanitary doctors are vaccinated all 300 children who have contacted the infected pupil. According to doctors, both patients became sick on November 29th but continued to attend classes. This is not the first case of infection outbreak among children in the region. A month ago, 28 pupils in Ekibastuz were hospitalized, diagnosed with hepatitis A, called by sanitary doctors a seasonal outbreak. The investigation is ongoing as we took lab samples of water and food consumed by the infected individuals. The school in question is also under the sanitary investigation.
The convicted oppositionist Yermek Narımbayev might soon face new charges, said on Wednesday the spouse of the activist. Zoya Narımbayeva believes the case might be instigated over the violation of the law on the leader of nation. The activist is known for campaigning for the change of power, open and fair parliament and president's elections, and also for publicly shouting Nazarbayev leave. If charges will be pressed, Narımbayev might become the first person in the country imprisoned for defamation of the nation's leader.
Narımbayev can be charged with the distribution of leaflets in January of the last year, which dealt with the transfer of land to China. The spouse of the convicted activist said that on December 3rd, after the end of the OSCE summit in Astana, Narımbayev discontinued his hunger strike. According to his family, the hunger strike in protest of unjust sentence lasted for around 100 days. The leader of the mortgage committee, Arman Yermek Narımbayev, was sentenced to 4 years in prison this May for contempt of court and police resistance. At the moment, his case is examined by the General Prosecutor's Office, with all the appeals rejected. After the prosecutor's examination, the family will apply for an appeal in the Supreme Court.
Customs officials threaten a lawsuit for slandering employees of the customs checkpoint Khorgos, reported on Wednesday Customs Control Committee representatives at the briefing in Astana. Massive corruption practices at the Kazakh-Chinese border were exposed by businesswoman Kanagat Takeyeva, who has recently asked President Nazarbayev for protection of her family against the pressure of law enforcement.
Customs officials accused the ex-broker Kanagat Takeyeva in slander and threatened to sue her. The entrepreneur has accused them of extortions at the Kazakh-Chinese border. During the briefing in Astana, the official representative of the Customs Control Committee said this incident is investigated by the Security Service of the department as well as the Financial Police. For the time of the investigation, the heads of the customs checkpoint Khorgos were suspended from work. The investigation group was summoned upon Takeyeva's inquiry. All brokers wrote explanatory letters where they refute the charges. In the meantime, Takeyeva said on Tuesday she intends to appeal to international organizations and the President of Kazakhstan for help in the investigation. According to the ex-broker, the Financial Police didn't react to her inquiry properly. The businesswoman treats the possible slander suit as pressure. She says officials are ready to do anything to avoid international publicity. I do not trust the Customs Committee. Now I am firmly convinced that the fish does actually rot from the head. A couple of months ago, the Financial Police claimed it arrested the heads of the customs checkpoint Khorgos and its subsidiary. They were accused of financial mismanagement and the investigation is still underway. At the Wednesday's briefing, the official representative of the Customs Committee denied the information over the absence of special equipment at Khorgos. To dispel all doubts, the leadership of the checkpoint is ready to organize a local tour on December 12th.
The president's son-in-law Timur Kulibayev is appointed as the person in charge of state purchase contracts, the most profitable and corrupt area of Kazakhstan's economy. The financial police reported that last year alone, the department registered 380 corruption crimes with a total damage to the state in the amount of more than $13.5 million. The deputy board chairman of the fund, Samru Kazana, will deal with the holdings procurement, said the trust's head Kairat Kilimbetov at the Astana's Commodity Producers Forum on Wednesday.
The president's son-in-law Timur Kulibayev will manage long-term contracts. Kulibayev, who is also the presidium chair of the National Economical Chamber Atamiken, as well as the top manager of several national companies, clarified during the forum that the development plans will be medium-term. Set in New Year, the volume of purchases in the companies supervised by Samru Kazana will exceed $241.5 million. Big money is nothing new for Nursultan Nazarbayev's son-in-law. According to Forbes, Kulibayev is one of 100 richest people in the world. Interestingly, Kulibayev was offered to manage the most profitable sector of the country after the launch of an investigation against him in Switzerland.
Activists of the public movement Желтоқсан 86, which unites participants of the uprising in Almaty in December of 1986, said on Wednesday there should be no rallies during the Independence Day. Otherwise, movement members will seek prosecution of those ignoring the advice. In total, there are 7 organizations in Kazakhstan linked with the events of December 1986, and often their positions differ drastically. The anti-rally sentiment is expressed by the very movement whose members pelted Vladimir Kozlov with eggs after the leader of the unregistered party Alga announced his decision to run for presidency during the next elections.
Activists of the movement Желтоқсан 86 are asking the population to refrain from rallies at the Republican Square in Almaty on December 16 and 17. The group believes that protest actions by people who were not part of events in 1986 will insult the memory of fighters for freedom and independence of Kazakhstan. We appeal to various bodies to bring these people to responsibility. The authorities cannot ignore this, since this is a memorial day for our fallen heroes who protected their homeland. A movement Leave Housing to People, which unites mortgage borrowers, applied to the city administration with a request to hold rallies on December 16th and 17th. The deputy mayor Serik Sidumanov confirmed this information and says he accepts Желтоқsan's demands. All citizens and organizations must operate within the law, which says there is a system in place allowing to hold public actions on the street. On the dates in question, no organization will be given a permission to do anything but lay flowers. Leader of the Leave Housing to People, Yesenbek Uktishbayev, sees the demands of Желтоқсан 86 as a direct violation of the constitution, which stipulates that all citizens have the right to express their protest any place, anywhere. Some forces are trying to clash us, and this looks like a clear provocation. I advise Gulbahram Junis not to bring this matter to court, since that would be a farce and the population will not understand the effort. We will hold the action in any case as planned, but we will also lay flowers as well. Uktishbayev says the movement will not rally to support their traditional demands, but only commemorate those killed at the Republican Square back in 1986.
A member of the Communist Party, Alexander Bondarenko, ended up in a mental institution for his participation in the unsanctioned protest action against the relocation of the Lenin's monument. The activist's spouse said Bondarenko was taken to the clinic on December 6 and discharged 2 days later. Quoting her husband, Larisa Bondarenko says he was placed in the psychiatric clinic for a forensic examination. Doctors didn't find anything wrong and discharged the man on Wednesday afternoon. On December 6, following a protest over the plans to move Lenin's monument, the police detained communist Andrei Tsuganov along with Alexander Bondarenko. The latter was arrested for 7 days for disorderly conduct. Co-investors of Kazkommertsbank failed to defend their rights to protest. On Wednesday, the Almala District Court of Almaty rejected the lawsuit of Zhankozy Bakibayev against policemen who detained the activist and his 3 companions for organizing a picket.
On December 28, Bakibayev and 3 of his companions were taken to the Almala District Police Department accused of holding a rally featuring posters quoting Nazarbayev's speeches. Bakibayev sought to recover $6,000 in compensation for the supposed unlawful detention. The court, however, dismissed the lawsuit. On December 6th, interest holders of Kazkommerts Engineering sent a letter to the president describing the proceedings and asking to deal with the developer. The real estate investors have also applied for a sanctioned rally on December 16th. In our letter, we indicate that this outraged real estate investors, who should be persecuted by the law enforcement, us or the dishonest developers who still hold their licenses. This continues the marathon of unfulfilled president's orders. With today's decision, we saw that no one is protecting the rights of real estate investors.
The legal results of the year are being summed up in Almaty. At a special press conference, lawyers, journalists and experts recalled the development of the situation with human rights in Kazakhstan in 2010.
In particular, the assessment was given to the situation over the Uzbek refugees who are seeking political asylum in Kazakhstan. Lawyer of the bureau Denis Juvaga noted that Uzbek citizens failed to present convincing arguments to receive the refugee status, but it is still not the reason to extradite them back to Uzbekistan. The conference also covered the situation with the freedom of assembly and prison tortures. Civil rights advocates noted the freedom of assembly in Kazakhstan is only virtual and is not used in practice. Regarding tortures, experts of the Human Rights Bureau said that the remarks left after the last year's visit of the UN Special Rapporteur Manfred Novak were ignored by the authorities. The measures taken at the government level are not effective enough. We note several problems that need to be resolved. First of all, it is the issue of creating a national preventive mechanism required to create a system of awareness of torture in prisons.
Participants of the conference also discussed the situation with the expert of the Human Rights Bureau, independent journalist Sergei Duvanov. An article in the newspaper Svoboda Slova, the freedom of speech, revealed some details of an old criminal case involving Duvanov. The publication says the case was fabricated with the help of the so-called death squad, comprised of security officers and acting as an orders of the authorities.
Well-known journalist Sergei Duvanov will not go to court with the evidence that back in 2003 he ended up purged because of a death squad. In late November, the newspaper Svoboda Slova published an admission of intelligence agent Vasily Kuzin, who said there was a political order to neutralize Duvanov. The reporter, however, doubts he will find justice even with such proof. For 15 years I am trying to prove that there are no fair courts in this country, so I am not about to ask them to clear my name. I am not naive and understand that even no court will take this case, but even if it will, I'll get additional couple of years. In 2003, Duvanov was sentenced to 3 years in prison for raping a minor. Just a few months before charges were pressed, he wrote an article, The Silence of the Lambs, about the Kazakhgate scandal. Interestingly, oppositionist Jarmahan Tuyakbay, the former prosecutor general, is not denying the existence of the death squad, consisting of intelligence personnel. It is likely units like that existed formally, fulfilling orders not of their superiors, but rather influential people outside the department. Perhaps this was their source of income. One way or another, but in time since Duvanov's conviction, the field was almost completely cleared of alternative views with the help of various squads. This fact is noted by civil rights advocates. A recent press conference on human rights attracted only a dozen reporters. This is a real indicator of the situation with the freedom of speech in the country. The upcoming election race will only make it worse. I think it is quite difficult to somehow make the situation worse, but if we believe in Kazakh authorities, we can expect some sort of purge before the elections. Sergei Duvanov says, following the scandalous publication in Svoboda Slova, he was asked for comments by only 2 people. All others are afraid to even think about the issue, not mentioning covering it in press. The journalist says this is quite telling.
A trial between a pensioner and a national carrier, Air Astana, continues in Almaty. Natalia Krasnova seeks to collect $100,000 from the company as compensation for moral damages. On August 1st, together with her grandchild, she missed a flight from Ust-Kamenogorsk to Almaty, not being on the passenger list despite the bought-in-advance tickets. In the end, the woman had to wait for the next flight on the street, since the company never offered her a hotel room and the airport was closed for the night.
Air Astana ran out of arguments. On December 8, during the trial against pensioner Natalia Krasnova, the representative of the air carrier engaged exclusively in denial of the plaintiff's claims, bringing up no arguments in return. I never promised anyone to provide video evidence. Pensioner Krasnova is seeking compensation because on August 1st she and her 1-year-old grandson were unable to fly from Ust-Kamenogorsk, although holding tickets bought in advance. The woman was forced to spend the night outside the airport after being told to leave the waiting lounge. The lawyer of the air carrier called this an exaggeration and gave the court the round-the-clock schedule of the airport. In response, Krasnova presented a video recording of the real situation. According to the regulation, we work until 7 p.m. and then close the airport for the night. This way, Krasnova undermined the main document used as the basis for Air Astana's entire defense strategy. She believes the paper could have been forged. It has two additional lines at the bottom that on August 2nd the airport stayed open, but I don't understand how this can be. It closes every single night, but for some reason on August 2nd, when we were kicked out, it stayed open. I will never manage to grasp it. Nevertheless, the court rejected the petition to carry out an examination of the document. The planned interrogation of witnesses didn't take place as well. The carrier sees no reason for that, while the pensioner already presented the court with written testimonies of Ust-Kamenogorsk residents who saw her sleeping on the bench near the airport porch. The debates of the parties are scheduled for December 15th.
The state program for the resettlement and assistance to repatriates doesn't work as intended, said experts and migrants themselves at the Wednesday's press conference in Almaty. Nurly Kosh project was to be implemented between 2009 and 2011 at the cost of more than $1 million. However, repatriates say the money went elsewhere, and the image venture to return ethnic Kazakhs back home has practically failed.
Koldubai Sakhov came to Kazakhstan in 2006 and now lives in the Shymkent district of Shonorak. This land plot was allocated to him through the state program for repatriates. Together with Sakhov, there are 4 of his children and their families in the house. The youngest grandchild is 1.5 years old and he is the first to be born in Kazakhstan. Sakhov only has the mayor decision on the allocation of land, but no state certificate. He also has no money for paperwork, since only 1 out of 20 people living here works and makes about $200 US. All of us can work, but there are no opportunities. Only people younger than 30 are needed, so just 1 family member is employed. What can be bought for $200? I spent $135 on flour and the rest for transportation, kids' shoes, coal and water. We have no water or gas here and have to buy them. There are many stories like this around here. Quite a few repatriates believe the state doesn't fully support them. Official financial aid often comes late, while language problems and negative attitude of the local hamper with employment. In 2009, the state attempted to improve the situation and launched the Nurly Kosh program, spending almost $1.5 million for its implementation. 2 years later, it is obvious the program failed to bring expected results. It's not a secret the Nurly Kosh program never played a historic role it was intended to. As people say, it was a blank and most of the allocated money was spent for some other goals. While setting up the program, no one bothered to calculate the settlement's needs and employment resources. Quite often the workplaces are occupied by labor migrants from the neighboring countries, while repatriate centers deal only with legal and language support, offering no free training courses. The dissatisfaction with unfulfilled government promises is closely associated with the underperformance of local authorities. Achieving these goals is the direct responsibility of the government, since the president gave his instruction. If the government doesn't fulfill them, then this government is illegitimate and we see no results of its work. The Repatriates program was one of the country's major image projects. There are just a few states in the world that deal with repatriation, namely Kazakhstan, Germany, Israel and recently Russia. Kazakh repatriates feel cheated since they were called back home by their motherland, but were met with the evil stepmother.
This is it for now. Join us tomorrow for more. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.